while sliding a $120,000 tuition check across the table to my little sister. Same table, same dinner, same parents, different daughter. 9 years later, I stood in the back of my sister's wedding. A wedding paid for by the same parents who couldn't spare a dime for my future. My mother scanned the room and whispered to my father, "Why does it feel like something's missing?" Before anyone could answer, the groom turned pale. He looked at me, then at Julia, then back at me, and he said one word that silenced 200 guests. What that word was, and what happened next, destroyed a wedding, a family's lie, and a 9-year silence, all in under 4 minutes. Before I go on, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely connect with this story. Drop your location and local time in the comments. I'd love to know where you're watching from. My name is Paige Connelly. I'm 27 years old. And this is not a revenge story. This is a survival story that happens to end with justice. Now, let me take you back 9 years, to the dinner that changed everything. I grew up in a white colonial house on Maple Ridge Lane in West Hartford, Connecticut. 4 bedrooms, 2-car garage, a lawn my father mowed every Saturday like clockwork. From the outside, we looked like a family that had it together. From the inside, well, that depends on which daughter you ask. My mother, Donna Connelly, had a system. It wasn't written down anywhere, but everyone in the house understood it. Julia was the investment, I was the overhead. Julia got piano lessons. I got hand-me-down textbooks. Julia got a new dress for every school dance. I got told to make do with what you have. And my mother didn't hide it. She introduced us at neighborhood barbecues like a product line. "This is my daughter Julia. She's going to do great things." Then she'd gesture vaguely in my direction. "And this is Paige." No prediction, no pride, just a name. The refrigerator was the museum of Julia's life. Cheerleading photos, honor society certificates, a dried corsage from homecoming taped to the freezer handle, every inch covered. One morning, sophomore year, I stuck my honor roll certificate up with a magnet right in the center. By the time I got home from school, it was gone. The fridge was getting cluttered, my mother said, not looking up from her magazine. My father, Richard, was a different kind of problem. He wasn't cruel, he was absent. Emotionally, strategically absent. He'd catch me in the hallway sometimes, away from my mother's earshot, and squeeze my shoulder. "I'm proud of you, kid." 5 words. Always whispered. Always when Donna wasn't looking. As if being proud of me was something that required secrecy. I told myself it would change when I got into college. I got in, with a scholarship that covered half. I just needed them to cover the other half. What happened at that dinner table is something I replay in my head to this day. May 2008. I was 18. Senior year was ending in 11 days, and I had a plan. I'd printed everything out: scholarship letter, tuition breakdown, a 4-year budget I'd built on a spreadsheet, income from part-time work, estimated expenses, the gap I needed them to fill. $62,000 over 4 years. I'd rehearsed my pitch in the bathroom mirror 3 times. Dinner was roast chicken. Julia sat across from me, scrolling her phone. My father cut his meat in silence. I waited until my mother finished her second glass of wine, then set the folder on the table. "I got into UConn," I said. "Half scholarship. I just need help with the rest." My mother didn't open the folder. "Paige, we've talked about this." "We haven't, actually. Not once." "You need to learn independence." She said it like a diagnosis. "The real world doesn't hand you things." I pointed out the obvious. "You're paying Julia's full tuition at Syracuse. Julia's situation is different." My mother folded her napkin. Precise. Unhurried. "She has potential that needs nurturing. You're more resilient." I looked at my father. He stared at his plate. His fork didn't move. He said nothing. Julia stirred her water glass. Didn't look up. Didn't say a word in my defense. Not one. "This discussion is over," my mother said. "If you want it bad enough, you'll find a way. That's what strong people do." I gathered my papers. My hands shook. I wouldn't cry in front of them. I wouldn't give her that. Later in the hallway, my father caught my arm. I thought, finally he'd say something. Your mother has her reasons, he said. Just give it time. Then he walked away. Back to the living room. Back to the television. Back to the version of peace that required my silence. That night I packed one suitcase. I had $340 in my savings account, and I made a decision I haven't reversed in 9 years. 5:14 a.m. The kitchen was dark. I set my house key on the counter next to the coffee maker, the one my mother ran every morning at 6:15, so she'd find it first. No note. I didn't have anything left to explain. The garage light was on. My father sat in his Buick, engine off, hands on the wheel. He saw me through the windshield. I saw him. He didn't open the door. I didn't knock on the glass. We just looked at each other for 3 seconds that felt like a year. Then I turned and walked to the bus stop on Farmington Avenue. Campus was 90 minutes away. My dorm room had a thin mattress, a metal desk, and a window that didn't close all the way. No sheets, no blankets. I'd forgotten mine. I slept in my jacket that first night. By the end of the week, I had 3 jobs: dishwasher at Fratelli's, an Italian restaurant off Main Street, overnight cashier at a Sunoco station on Route 44, cleaning crew at the residence halls on weekends. My schedule was a jigsaw puzzle with no picture on the box. 4 hours of sleep here, a 90-minute nap there. I ate whatever Fratelli's was throwing out at closing. 2 weeks in, I called my mother. I don't know why. Maybe I thought distance had softened something. You made your choice, she said. Don't call to make me feel guilty. She hung up. 7 seconds. That was the whole conversation. I saved her number under a new name. Do not answer. That evening, a text came through from Julia. I stared at it for a long time. Mom says you're being dramatic. Just come home and apologize. So that was the story she was telling. I wasn't the daughter they abandoned. I was the daughter who left. The difficult one. The dramatic one. I didn't know it then, but that phone call was the last time I'd speak to my mother for nearly a decade. And when we finally stood face to face again, she wouldn't recognize the person I'd become. Freshman year nearly broke me. I fell asleep in organic chemistry twice. Spilled boiling water on my left hand during a dinner rush at Fratelli's. 2nd-degree burn, 3 fingers. Wrapped it in gauze from the gas station first aid kit and went to my morning lecture 40 minutes later. My GPA hovered at 2.9, dangerously close to losing the scholarship that was keeping me enrolled. Professor Alan Whitfield noticed. He taught my Intro to Health Sciences seminar. Silver-haired, bow-tied, the kind of man who actually reads student papers instead of skimming them. After class one Tuesday, he asked me to stay. You're exhausted, he said. Not a question. I gave him the short version. He didn't pity me. He pulled out a folder of internal grants and research assistantships. You're too smart to burn out before sophomore year, he said. Let me help you find a way that doesn't cost your hands or your sleep. He got me into a paid research position in his lab. It wasn't much, $400 a month, but it replaced the overnight shifts at Sunoco. Meanwhile, my mother was busy. Thanksgiving came. I wasn't invited, though I learned later that Donna told the entire family I'd been asked and refused. She doesn't want to see us, my mother reportedly said, dabbing her eyes with a napkin. We've tried everything. My Aunt Helen, Donna's younger sister, called me the week after. Your mother is heartbroken, Paige. Why are you doing this to her? I tried to explain. Helen cut me off. Donna would never do that. You always were the difficult one. The line went dead. And just like that, I lost my mother's side of the family too. That same week, Julia posted a photo on Facebook. A brand new Audi A4 parked in our parents' driveway, a red bow on the hood. Caption, Best parents ever. My mother's comment underneath, anything for my baby girl. 87 likes. I took a screenshot, not out of bitterness, out of clarity. That was the night I stopped hoping they'd change and started building a life that didn't need them to. Lena Novak sat next to me in Biology 201 on the first day of sophomore year. She had dark hair pulled back in a rubber band, circles under her eyes deeper than mine, and a thermos of coffee the size of a small fire extinguisher. You look how I feel, she said. Thanks. It's a compliment. It means you're still showing up. Lena was pre-med. Her parents had emigrated from the Czech Republic when she was 6. They ran a dry cleaning shop in Bridgeport and couldn't afford tuition any more than mine could, the difference being hers actually wanted to help. They just couldn't. My parents could. They just chose not to. She became the first person I told the whole story to. All of it. The dinner, the check, the Audi, the Facebook post. I told her on a bench outside the science building at 11 at night, both of us eating gas station sandwiches because neither of us could afford the dining hall. Lena didn't flinch. She didn't offer sympathy. She wiped mustard off her chin and said, "You don't owe them a redemption arc, Paige. You owe yourself a life." I carried those words for years. That semester I started writing a research paper for Dr. Whitfield's lab. 12 pages on data applications and patient record management. Small clinic systems, workflow optimization, interoperability gaps. I wrote most of it between midnight shifts, in the staff break room at Fratelli's, between loads of industrial dishes. It was dry, technical, and deeply unsexy. But it was the first thing I'd ever built that felt completely mine. Dr. Whitfield read the draft in one sitting. "This could be something," he said. "Not just a paper. Something real." That paper, those 12 pages I wrote between midnight shifts, would eventually become the foundation of something I couldn't have imagined. But that part comes later. One night, sorting through junk mail, I found a forwarded email from my father. No subject line, no greeting, just 7 words. "I hope you're eating enough. Dad." He didn't ask where I was, didn't offer help, didn't mention my mother. Just 7 words floating in digital silence. I read it twice. Then I closed my laptop and went back to work. The end of sophomore year almost took me under. Fratelli's closed. The owner retired, the building sold. Just like that, 40% of my income disappeared overnight. I sat on my dorm bed and did the math 3 times, hoping the numbers would change. They didn't. I had enough savings for 6 weeks of rent on my shared room. After that, nothing. I picked up my phone, scrolled to Do Not Answer. My thumb hovered over the green button for 11 seconds. I counted. I put the phone down. Instead, I walked to the campus job board and signed up for 2 more gigs: tutoring freshmen in statistics and freelance data entry for a local insurance office on weekends. My schedule compressed to 3 hours of sleep a night. Some mornings, I couldn't remember driving to campus. Lena started leaving granola bars in my backpack without telling me. Meanwhile, Julia was living her semester abroad in Florence. I know this because her Instagram existed, even though I'd unfollowed her. The algorithm didn't care about my boundaries. A photo surfaced on my feed at 2 in the morning. Julia on a terrace overlooking the Arno. Glass of wine in hand, golden hour light on her face. Caption: "Living my best life. #grateful." My mother had reposted it with her own words. "My daughter, conquering the world." I was sitting in the basement laundry room of my residence hall. The overhead light buzzed. The heat had been out for 3 days. My fingers were cracked from dish soap and cold water. Same parents, same blood, different worlds. Then, a lifeline. Dr. Whitfield called me into his office. Not to warn me, to hand me a letter. I'd been selected for a competitive summer research fellowship, fully funded. Housing, stipend, meals, everything covered for 10 weeks. "You earned this," he said, "not because of your situation, because of your work." That summer program saved my academic career. But more importantly, it introduced me to a network of people in healthcare technology, people who saw what I could build, not what I came from. One of those connections would lead me to a name I wouldn't hear again for years, not until I was standing in the back of a wedding I was never supposed to attend. I graduated summa cum laude on a Sunday in May. The stadium held 4,000 people. None of them were mine. Lena stood in the bleachers with a handmade sign that said Dr. Connelly, eventually, in crooked purple letters. She screamed my name when I crossed the stage. One person, louder than a whole family would have been. We took a photo outside, just the 2 of us, caps tilted, grinning into Lena's phone. No parents in the background, no bouquet, no dinner reservation afterward. Lena drove us to a diner on Route 9, and we split a plate of cheese fries and called it a celebration. I got a job within a month. Entry-level software analyst at a small health tech firm outside Hartford. 12 employees, cramped office, terrible coffee. But I learned fast, wrote code, fixed systems nobody else wanted to touch, got promoted once, then again. By 24, I was sketching something of my own on napkins and spreadsheets. A platform to manage patient data for small clinics, the ones too small for enterprise software, but too complex for paper records. The idea that had started as 12 pages in Dr. Whitfield's lab had grown teeth. I used my savings and a small SBA loan to get it off the ground. Named it MedBridge Solutions. The first year, I had 2 clients and a folding table for a desk. I incorporated under my married name, well, almost married. I'd been engaged briefly in my mid-20s to a man named David Alcott. The relationship didn't survive the 80-hour weeks, but by the time we split, all my business filings, my professional reputation, and my conference badges read Paige Alcott. I never changed them back. It felt like mine by then. A name I'd earned in boardrooms, not inherited at a dinner table where I wasn't welcome. Then one evening, my phone rang. A Connecticut area code I hadn't seen in 6 years. "Hey," Julia said. "It's me." "I know. Mom doesn't know I'm calling." "What do you need, Julia?" "A favor. A financial one." "How much?" "8,000. I'll pay you back." "I can't ask Mom and Dad. They can't know about this." "For what?" "It's complicated." "No." "You don't even—" "No." She hung up. 30 minutes later, my phone lit up with an unknown number. I picked up before I could think. "How dare you refuse your sister?" My mother's voice, colder than I remembered. "After everything this family has done." I pressed the red button, set the phone face down on the counter, and stood there, replaying what Julia had said 30 minutes earlier. "Mom doesn't know I'm calling." So either my mother had suddenly developed telepathy, or my sister had lied to me within the first 5 seconds of our first conversation in 6 years. Some things never change. Made myself a cup of tea, and went back to work. I didn't know what the $8,000 was for, not then. But when I found out, years later in the worst possible way, it explained everything Julia had been hiding. Donna didn't take rejection quietly. She never did. Within a week, my phone started ringing. Numbers I hadn't seen in years. Cousins, family friends, people I barely remembered from childhood holiday dinners. All with the same script. "Paige, your mother is devastated." "Paige, how could you turn your back on Julia?" She'd called every one of them. Built a fresh narrative from scratch. Paige has money now. Paige refused to help her own sister. Paige has become cold and selfish since she left. Aunt Helen called. "Your mother is crying every night because of you." "Did she cry when I was working 3 jobs at 18? That was your choice." "Exactly. And this is also my choice. Goodbye, Aunt Helen." Then came the Facebook post. Long, performative, dripping with carefully constructed sorrow. Some children forget where they come from. A mother's heart can only break so many times. She didn't name me. She didn't have to. 142 likes. Julia's comment sat right at the top. "Love you, Mom. I'm here for you. Always." A perfect duet. The devoted daughter and the wounded mother, staged for an audience that only ever heard one side. I saw the post. I didn't react. Didn't comment. I blocked both accounts, closed my laptop, and went back to debugging a client integration that was due in the morning. A few days later, Lena called me on her break from the hospital. She was halfway through her residency by then. "Hey, random question. Julia's LinkedIn says she's a senior healthcare administrator, but I looked her up on the state licensing registry last night. Nothing. No license, no record. Maybe she hasn't updated it? Or maybe there's nothing to update." I filed that away. I didn't think about it again. I was too busy building something real to chase someone else's lie. I could have fought back. Could have posted my own version, corrected the record, aired the receipts. But I had a company to build. And the best response to a false narrative isn't a counter-narrative. It's a life they can't edit. 26, 2 years after that phone call, MedBridge Solutions closed its Series A round. $4.2 million in funding, 28 employees, a real office in downtown Boston with actual desks and coffee that didn't taste like engine cleaner. I still drove a Honda Civic with a dent in the rear bumper, still lived in a one-bedroom apartment in Somerville. I didn't build this company to impress anyone, I told Lena when she asked why I hadn't upgraded. I built it because I had no safety net and no other option. That October, I was invited to speak at a healthcare technology conference in Chicago. 200 attendees, mostly hospital administrators and clinic operators. I presented MedBridge's platform, how it cut onboarding time for small practices by 60%, how it integrated with existing EHR systems without the enterprise price tag. Afterward, a man in a gray blazer introduced himself near the coffee station. Tall, confident handshake, direct eye contact. Marcus Webb. I'm CFO of Lakeview Medical Partners, a regional clinic chain. We're expanding. What you showed up there is exactly what we've been looking for. How many locations? I asked. 14, 22 by next year. That's a significant rollout. It is, which is why I want to talk numbers. Can we meet next month? We exchanged business cards. I wrote Marcus Webb, Lakeview Medical, follow-up November, in my meeting notes that night. Just a name. Just a potential deal. As I waited for my flight home at O'Hare, a notification popped on my phone. Julia Connelly has sent you a friend request on Facebook. She'd made a new account. The old one was still blocked. I stared at it for a few seconds, then tapped decline, and put my phone away. Marcus Webb. I didn't know he was about to become my sister's fiancé, or that our deal would detonate a lie my family had been building for 9 years. 6 months later, the deal with Lakeview Medical Partners was taking shape. Contract value, $2.8 million, easily the largest in MedBridge's history. My team had spent weeks on the proposal. Technical specs, implementation timelines, compliance documentation. Healthcare is heavily regulated, and every detail had to be airtight. As part of the deal, Lakeview wanted MedBridge to handle their credentialing module, the system that tracks staff licenses, certifications, and continuing education for regulatory audits. To build it properly, we needed their existing personnel records as sample data for implementation. My compliance officer requested the full staff roster with credentials listed. It was a technical requirement, not an investigation. Just data we needed to configure the system correctly. That part was routine. What wasn't routine was the envelope that arrived at my apartment on a Tuesday afternoon, cream-colored, heavy cardstock, gold embossing along the edges. I opened it standing at the kitchen counter, still holding my keys. Together with their families, Julia Connelly and Marcus Webb request the honor of your presence at their wedding. Rosewood Estate, Old Saybrook, Connecticut. Saturday, June 15th. 5 o'clock in the evening. I read it twice. Then I set it down and walked to the window and stood there for a while. Marcus Webb. The same Marcus Webb whose contract was sitting in my inbox. My sister was marrying my biggest client. I picked up the invitation again. A folded piece of notebook paper fell out from behind the RSVP card. The handwriting was shaky, slanted, small letters pressed hard into the paper. Please come. Dad. Not Donna, not Julia. Richard. He'd slipped it in like contraband. My father didn't know what I did for a living. He'd never asked, and I'd never told him. Our only communication in 9 years had been a 7-word email he never followed up on. He didn't send the invitation because he knew about Marcus or MedBridge. He sent it because, for all his failures, he still wanted both his daughters in the same room. I called Lena that night. My sister is marrying my biggest client. Silence. Does he know who you are? She asked. He knows me as the CEO of MedBridge, not as Julia's sister. Does Julia know? I don't think so. She has no idea what I do. So what are you going to do? I looked at the notebook paper. My father's handwriting. Shaky, small. The letters of a man who didn't have the courage to call, but couldn't stop himself from reaching. I'm going to go. I should have thrown the invitation away. Every rational part of me said, don't go. But my father's handwriting, on torn notebook paper, tucked behind an RSVP card like he was afraid someone would see, broke something in me I thought I'd sealed shut. I spent 2 weeks going back and forth. Lena said, if you go, go for yourself, not for them. She was right. She usually was. I decided to attend for 3 reasons. Closure, my father's note, and the fact that I needed one more face-to-face with Marcus before we finalized the contract. A wedding wasn't ideal. But nothing about this situation was ideal. I RSVP'd for two, myself and Lena, who insisted on coming. "You're not walking into that house alone," she said. "I didn't survive 4 years of med school to let you face Donna Connelly without backup." Meanwhile, the due diligence process churned along on schedule. My implementation team began running the credentialing data through our verification engine. It's a core feature of the platform, cross-referencing submitted credentials against state licensing databases and university registries. It's what the software does. It's literally the product we were selling them. The kind of paperwork that sits in someone's inbox for a week before anyone notices. The spreadsheet came back with 14 names. I scrolled through it at my desk, coffee in hand, not expecting anything unusual. Line 9, Julia Connelly, Healthcare Administrator, MS in Health Informatics, State University of New York. My stomach dropped. Not surprise exactly. Something closer to confirmation. I thought of what Lena had told me a couple of years back. Her name wasn't on the state registry. I could have flagged it. Could have said something to Marcus right then. But this was a compliance process, not a personal investigation. The protocol was clear. Verify every name on the list. No exceptions, no shortcuts, no favoritism, in either direction. I emailed my legal team. Fast-track the credential verification, the full list, standard procedure. I didn't single Julia out. I didn't have to. The process would find whatever there was to find. 3 days later, a preliminary note came back from our compliance officer. 3 names flagged for extended verification. Institutional responses may take 2 to 4 weeks. The wedding was in 18 days. The results might not arrive until after it. And I realized I wasn't just going to my sister's wedding. I was walking into a collision between 2 worlds she never expected to meet. I didn't ask which 3. I didn't need to. The wedding was in 18 days. The verification results would arrive in 14. And I realized I wasn't just going to my sister's wedding. I was walking into a collision between 2 worlds she never expected to meet. Rosewood Estate sat on 12 acres of rolling vineyard just north of the Connecticut shoreline. String lights hung in loops between old oak trees. White linen draped every surface. A string quartet played something soft and tasteful near the garden entrance. 200 chairs faced a flower-covered arch. It looked like a magazine spread. It looked like money. My parents' money. Lena and I arrived at 4:40. I wore a simple navy dress, hair down, no jewelry worth noticing. Lena wore black. "Moral support and funeral energy," she whispered. "Both apply." We'd barely made it past the welcome table when a voice cut through the ambient music. "I didn't expect to see you here." Aunt Helen. Champagne in hand. Same pinched expression she'd worn the last time she told me I was the difficult one. "I was invited," I said. "By whom?" "Does it matter? I'm here." She opened her mouth, closed it, then retreated toward a cluster of cousins near the bar. I watched her whisper something to 2 women I vaguely recognized. Both turned to look at me. Then my mother appeared. Donna Connelly moved through the crowd like a hostess at a gala. Champagne-colored dress, hair blown out, smile set to maximum wattage. She touched shoulders, kissed cheeks, laughed at things that weren't funny. When she saw me, the smile didn't drop. It froze. She crossed the lawn in 6 seconds and pulled me behind a trellis of white roses. "What are you doing here?" "Attending my sister's wedding." "You haven't been part of this family for 9 years. Whose choice was that?" Her jaw tightened. "Don't make a scene, not today." "I have no intention of making a scene, Mom." She studied me for 3 long seconds, reading me, calculating. Then she turned back to her guests, voice bright and warm as sunlight. "Paige decided to surprise us. How wonderful." She didn't touch me, didn't hug me, just folded me into her performance like a loose thread she needed to tuck away before anyone noticed. Then I felt a hand on my shoulder. I turned. My father stood behind me. His suit was a little too big. His eyes were red. He didn't say a word. He just pulled me into his arms and held on. 9 years. The first real embrace in 9 years. I went rigid for a moment. My body didn't remember how to receive this. Then I exhaled and patted his back. "Hi, Dad." He nodded into my shoulder, squeezed tighter. I felt Donna's eyes on my back the entire time my father held me. She wasn't angry that I came, she was afraid. I just didn't understand why. Not yet. Julia found me 10 minutes later. She came through the crowd in a cloud of white tulle and hairspray, her face cycling through emotions faster than she could settle on one. Shock, then calculation, then performance. She landed on performance. Paige! Oh my God, you came! She threw her arms around me in front of a dozen watching guests, her voice pitched high enough to carry. I've missed you so much! Her perfume was expensive. Her hug was hollow. She squeezed me like a prop, tight enough for the photos, loose enough to mean nothing. You look great, she said, stepping back, scanning me head to toe. Not warmth, assessment. Congratulations, Julia. Thank you. I can't believe you're here. Mom didn't tell me. She didn't know. A flicker of something crossed Julia's face. She recovered fast. My mother materialized at my elbow. Let's get you seated, Paige. Her hand closed around my arm, not gently, and steered me toward the back of the reception area. The table was tucked behind a pillar, near the catering entrance. Place cards for names I didn't recognize. People from Julia's office, plus ones without partners. The farthest seat from the head table. The farthest seat from the microphone. We didn't expect you, Donna said. So this was the only spot left. Lena sat down next to me and said nothing. She didn't need to. Her expression said everything. From the head table, my mother's voice carried across the reception as she introduced Julia to well-wishers. My daughter, the healthcare executive, she's done so well. We're so proud. My daughter, singular. A cousin leaned over to Donna. And Paige, what does she do these days? Oh, she's... A pause, a tilt of the head. Finding herself. You know how it is. Light laughter rippled across the table. A few people glanced in my direction. Lena's hand found mine under the tablecloth. Breathe. I am breathing. I've been breathing through worse than this for 9 years. At the bar, Marcus stood with a group of groomsmen, gesturing animatedly. I heard him say, loud enough to carry, wait till you meet our strategic tech partner later. She's flying in just for this. Major deal. He was talking about me. He just didn't know it yet. The speeches began after the main course. Marcus's best man went first, charming, forgettable. Then Julia's maid of honor, a sorority sister who cried on cue. Polite applause, glasses raised. The rhythm of a wedding doing what weddings do. Then my mother stood up. Donna Connelly took the microphone like she'd been born holding one. She smiled at the crowd, dabbed her eyes before she'd even said a word. The performance was immaculate. I want to talk about raising a daughter, she began. My fingers tightened around my water glass. She talked about sacrifice, about late nights and early mornings, about pouring everything into Julia's future. She talked about Julia's incredible academic career, her dedication, her independence. I raised my daughter to be independent, Donna said, to chase her dreams, to never settle. Today she's marrying a man worthy of everything she's built. Independent. The word hit me like a slap, the same word she'd used to deny me everything. She continued, Julia is proof that when a family invests in their children, beautiful things happen. 200 people applauded. I didn't move. Lena's hand pressed harder against mine. Then Donna's gaze drifted across the room and landed on me. A pause, practiced, deliberate. And of course, we love all our children. She said it the way you'd add a footnote, an afterthought stapled to the bottom of a finished page. A few heads turned toward me. I kept my face still. Donna wrapped up with a grand sweep. Why does it feel like something's missing today? Oh, I think it's because our family is finally complete again. Applause. My mother returned to her seat, glowing. My father appeared at my table moments later. His hand found my shoulder. She didn't mean it like that. She meant exactly that, Dad. She always does. He opened his mouth. Nothing came. He patted my shoulder once and walked back to the head table. I wasn't going to say anything. I wasn't going to cause a scene. I was going to sit at my back of the room table, finish my water, and leave. That was the plan. That was always the plan. But then Marcus walked toward my table with a man I recognized, and the plan stopped mattering. Greg Harmon saw me first. He was Marcus's business partner. I'd met him once on a video call during contract negotiations. Stocky, red-faced, a voice that carried. He stopped mid-stride 3 feet from my table. Paige? Paige Connelly? Medbridge? Marcus turned, looked at me, then looked again. Wait. His face rearranged itself in real time. You're Paige Connelly? The Paige Connelly? I stood. Hi, Marcus. But Alcott? That's not... He looked at the invitation in his memory. Connelly. Wait, your real name is Connelly? Paige Connelly, Julia's older sister. I go by Alcott professionally, have for years. The air between us changed. I watched Marcus do the math. The last name, the invitation, the sister Julia had mentioned only in passing, always vaguely, always dismissively. She never... He trailed off. She never mentioned she had a sister in tech. She said her sister was... He stopped himself, but not fast enough. Was what? I asked. His eyes dropped. She said you were... estranged. That you had problems. I see. People at nearby tables were turning. A conversation at this volume with the groom at a wedding? It drew eyes the way a raised voice in a library does. My mother appeared in seconds. She moved through the crowd with the precision of someone who had spent a lifetime controlling rooms. Marcus, darling, don't bother Paige. Her voice was warm, her eyes were not. She's here to enjoy, not to talk business. Marcus looked at Donna, the way you look at someone who just told you the sky is green. Business? Mrs. Connelly, do you know who this is? He gestured toward me. This is the CEO of Medbridge Solutions. We're about to sign a $2.8 million contract with her company. Donna's face did something I'd never seen before. For 1 second, maybe less, the mask slipped. Her mouth opened. Her eyes went wide. Something behind them recalculated. Then the smile returned, thinner, tighter. Well, isn't that lovely? Across the reception, Julia was watching. She'd been mid-conversation with a bridesmaid, but her body had turned toward us, her glass frozen halfway to her lips. She set it down on the nearest table and started walking over. For the first time in my life, I saw fear in my sister's eyes. Not of me, of being found out. Marcus didn't wait for Julia to reach us. He was already moving toward the stage, microphone in hand, running on the adrenaline of a man who'd just stumbled into what he thought was the greatest coincidence of the evening. Everyone, sorry, one more quick announcement. He grinned at the crowd. 200 faces turned. I just found out something incredible. The CEO of Medbridge Solutions, the company that's about to transform our clinic operations, is here tonight, and she happens to be Julia's older sister. The string quartet had stopped. Even the catering staff paused. Paige Alcott, or, as I just found out, Paige Connelly, Julia's older sister. Marcus pointed toward my table. Built her company from the ground up. No family connections, no investors initially. She coded the first prototype herself while working 2 jobs. Forbes 30 Under 30 finalist. And she's been sitting at the back table this whole time. Silence first. Then applause, scattered at the start, then louder. Then sustained. People craned their necks. A few stood. I stayed on my feet, nodded once. Thank you, Marcus. This is Julia's day. Let's keep the focus on the bride and groom. But 200 people were already doing what 200 people do. They were recalculating. I could see it on their faces. The whispers started immediately. Wait, that's the sister Donna said was finding herself? That's the one who left? Forbes? At the head table, my mother sat motionless. She was still smiling, but the smile had gone rigid. The kind of expression muscles hold when the brain behind them has stopped sending instructions. Julia stood frozen near the dessert table. Her bouquet dangled from one hand. And Aunt Helen, my mother's most loyal messenger, the woman who'd called me difficult twice in a decade, walked up to me with her face flushed pink. Why didn't you tell us? I did, Aunt Helen. I kept my voice level. 6 years ago, you said I was the difficult one. She had no answer for that. She stood there with her mouth half open, then turned and walked away. The status reveal was just the appetizer. The main course was still coming, and it had nothing to do with me. Julia reached Marcus before I did. I couldn't hear the words from where I stood, but I could read the body language. Julia's hands moved fast, explaining, deflecting, reshaping. Marcus's arms were crossed. His jaw was set. He shook his head once, slowly, the way a man does when he's hearing something that doesn't add up. Donna intercepted me on the way to the bar. You planned this, didn't you? Planned what? Being successful? I looked at her. No, Mom, that was your idea, remember? Be independent. You came here to humiliate your sister. I came because Dad asked me to. Everything else, you built yourself. She stepped closer. Her voice dropped to a hiss. You always had to make everything about you. This is the first time in 9 years I've been in the same room as you. I didn't make a speech. I didn't ask for the microphone. Your son-in-law introduced me. Take it up with him. She turned and walked away. I watched her hands. They were trembling. 5 minutes later, Marcus appeared at my side. His phone was in his hand. His face was different now. The warmth from the announcement gone, replaced by something flat and controlled. Paige, can we talk? Not here. We stepped onto the balcony overlooking the vineyard. The sun was setting. The light was beautiful. It felt obscene given what was coming. My team sent me the due diligence report this morning, he said. I hadn't read it until just now. He held up his phone. Julia's name is on the credential verification list. I know. It says her master's degree from State University doesn't exist. They have no record of her completing any program. She enrolled but didn't finish sophomore year. I know. He stared at me. You knew? And you didn't tell me? The final verification came back yesterday morning. Saturday delivery to my compliance officer's email. She forwarded it to me 3 hours before I got in the car to drive here. I haven't had time to process it through legal yet, Marcus. I didn't even know how to begin that conversation. Hi, your fiancé's credentials don't check out. Also, she's my estranged sister. There's no playbook for this. His phone screen went dark. He stood there, both hands on the railing, staring at the vineyard rows below. 3 minutes of silence. The bass from the reception music thumped faintly through the glass doors. Then he said something I'll never forget. I'm going to ask her once, Marcus said, still gripping the railing. In front of everyone, because if she lies to my face one more time, in front of my family, my partners, then I'll know exactly who I almost married. Marcus? Don't. I need to do this. He walked back inside. I followed 3 steps behind. I didn't want to be part of whatever was about to happen, but I couldn't look away either. Julia was standing near the cake table, talking to a bridesmaid with a smile that was working too hard. She saw Marcus coming and her smile brightened. Baby, whatever she told you, did you graduate from State? The bridesmaid took a step back. What? Julia laughed, a short, nervous sound. Of course I don't. Did you? Julia's eyes moved, left, right. She was scanning the room, calculating who could hear. Most of the tables within earshot had gone quiet. Can we talk about this later? You told me you had a master's. Marcus's voice wasn't loud. It was rigid, the kind of quiet that makes people lean in. You told your parents you graduated. You told my clinic you were certified. Donna materialized at Julia's side. Her hand found Julia's arm. Marcus, lower your voice. Did you know? He turned to Donna. Know what? My daughter graduated with honors. She didn't graduate at all, Mrs. Connelly. Marcus's voice cracked on the last word. She dropped out sophomore year. 200 guests. Total silence. Even the string quartet had stopped. The only sound was a wine glass someone set down too hard at table 6. Julia's face crumpled. The performance fell away all at once, like scaffolding collapsing off a building. Tears streaked her makeup. I was going to tell you. When? After the wedding? Marcus's jaw trembled. After I hired you into my company based on a resume you made up? Donna opened her mouth again, and Marcus spun toward her. Stop! Marcus held up one hand. Not loud, not a shout, but the single word landed like a door closing. Julia's mouth froze mid-sentence. The entire reception went still. He turned and looked at me, standing 10 feet away, silent, holding nothing, doing nothing. This person, his voice cracked. He pressed his fist to his mouth for a moment, steadied himself, then dropped his hand. This person is the only honest Connelly in this room. 200 people looked at me. I didn't speak. I didn't nod. I didn't need to. At the edge of the stage, my father stood alone. One hand gripped the back of a chair. He wasn't defending anyone. He wasn't speaking. He was crying. Silently, the way men cry when they've known for years and said nothing. Marcus walked off the patio and didn't look back. Greg followed him. A cluster of groomsmen trailed after, exchanging glances that said what no one would say out loud. This wedding was over. Julia sank to the ground. Her dress pooled around her like a deflated parachute, all that white fabric, all that money, settling on the flagstone. Two bridesmaids crouched beside her. One handed her a napkin. Julia didn't take it. The reception hummed with the low, electric murmur of 200 people processing something they'd never forget. Chairs scraped, phones came out. Someone at a back table was already texting. My mother turned to me. Her composure was gone, not cracked, shattered. Her voice came out raw. Are you happy now? You destroyed your sister's life. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't step closer. I spoke clearly enough for the tables nearby to hear. Not because I wanted an audience, but because I was done having conversations in corners. No, Mom. Julia's lies destroyed Julia's life. My company's standard compliance process found the truth. That's not revenge. That's accountability. You could have buried it, her voice shook. You could have said nothing. And committed fraud? Risked my company, my employees, my clients for a lie? I shook my head. No, I won't sacrifice my integrity for this family's image. Not anymore. Something shifted in the crowd. I could feel it, the weight of perception tilting. A few relatives at nearby tables exchanged looks. Aunt Helen pressed her hand to her mouth. An older man I didn't recognize, someone from Marcus's side, nodded at me once. Just once. But it meant everything. Donna looked around. For the first time, the room wasn't with her. She turned and walked toward the parking lot without another word. A hand touched my arm. I turned. Megan, Julia's maid of honor, stood there, eyes red. I should have said something years ago, she said. I knew about the degree. She begged me to keep quiet. I'm sorry. So the lie had roots, deeper and wider than I'd imagined. I picked up my clutch from the table. It was time to go. I was halfway across the gravel parking lot when I heard his footsteps, uneven, hurried, dress shoes on loose stone. Paige, wait. I stopped but didn't turn around. The evening air was warm and still. Crickets had started up in the vineyard rows. I have nothing left to say, Dad. Then let me say something. His voice was winded. For once. I turned. My father stood under a string of lights that ended at the edge of the lot. His tie was loose. His eyes were swollen. He looked 10 years older than the man I'd left in the garage that morning 9 years ago. I knew it was wrong, he said. Every single day, Paige. I knew what your mother was doing was wrong, and I said nothing. Why? He pressed his lips together, looked at the ground, looked back at me. Because I was a coward. Because it was easier to lose you quietly than to fight her loudly. His voice cracked. And that makes me worse than her. Because she at least believed she was right. I knew she was wrong, and I still chose peace. The word hung between us. Peace, the same word he'd been hiding behind my whole life. That wasn't peace, Dad. That was abandonment. I know. Silence. A car started somewhere in the lot. The muffled bass of the reception music still pulsed from inside. Somewhere behind us, Julia was still sitting on the ground in her wedding dress. Somewhere my mother was finding her car keys. And here, under a string of lights on a gravel lot, my father was doing the only honest thing he'd done in a decade. I don't hate you, I said, but I can't forgive you tonight. Maybe not for a long time. That's fair. I need to go. He nodded. Drive safe. 2 words. Simple, small. But they weren't an excuse this time. They weren't a deflection. For the first time in 9 years, my father said something to me that wasn't designed to end a conversation. It was an admission that he had no right to extend one. Lena was waiting by the car. She didn't ask what he said. She just started the engine. I didn't cry until we hit the highway. The fallout came in waves. The first wave was digital. Within 48 hours, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. But for the first time in nearly a decade, The calls weren't accusations. They were apologies. Aunt Helen called on Monday morning. Her voice was different, lower, stripped of the righteous certainty I'd grown up hearing. Paige, I owe you an apology. I believed everything your mother told me. For 9 years. Every word. I was wrong. I thanked her. I didn't say it was okay, because it wasn't. My great-aunt Margaret, my grandmother's sister, the oldest living member of the family, sent me an email that night. 3 lines. Your grandmother would have been so proud of you. I'm sorry we weren't there. Please don't give up on all of us. The second wave was professional. Marcus's colleagues at Lakeview began verifying Julia's employment history. What they found matched what I already suspected. Julia had never held the title of healthcare administrator. She was a receptionist. A good one by most accounts. Personable, organized, well-liked. But the title on her LinkedIn, the credentials on her resume, the degree on the wall of her home office, none of it was real. Marcus emailed me Tuesday evening. Professional, controlled. The contract with Medbridge remains on track. Julia's situation is personal, and I won't let it affect our professional relationship. But I need some time before our next meeting. I hope you understand. I understood. The third wave was social media. Donna posted once, a long, tearful paragraph. My family is being torn apart by jealousy and lies. Pray for us. It was the same playbook she'd run for years, but this time the comment section didn't cooperate. What about Paige? What really happened at the wedding? Is it true about Julia's degree? She deleted the post within 4 hours. Then, on Wednesday night, a text from Julia. No preamble, no performance. I'm sorry, for all of it. I don't expect you to believe me. I read it 3 times. I didn't respond, not because I didn't believe her, because I didn't know what to say yet. Some messages need to sit before you know what they deserve. 2 weeks later, the consequences had stopped being whispers and started becoming facts. Julia was terminated from Lakeview Medical Partners. The HR department's review confirmed what Marcus already knew. She'd misrepresented her credentials on her employment application. A fabricated degree. A professional title she never held. Under Connecticut's at-will employment laws, that alone was sufficient cause. But it was worse than a simple firing. Because Julia had listed those fake credentials on paperwork submitted during a federal compliance audit the previous year, the clinic's legal team flagged it as a potential liability. She wasn't criminally charged, there was no patient harm, no billing fraud, but the termination was documented as credential misrepresentation. And in healthcare, that's the kind of note that follows you from one job application to the next. Marcus called off the wedding quietly. No dramatic announcement, no public statement. He simply informed family and friends that the engagement was over. The Rosewood estate refunded what it could. The registry gifts were returned. The honeymoon to Portugal was cancelled. I heard this secondhand through Lena, who heard it from a mutual connection at the hospital. Donna's social circle, the one she'd spent 30 years cultivating, began to contract. Old friends stopped calling. Neighbors who used to drop by with casseroles kept their distance. Great-Aunt Margaret told me that at a family gathering the following month, Donna sat in the corner and spoke to almost no one. She looked like a woman who'd run out of script, Margaret said. The Medbridge contract with Lakeview went through on schedule. $2.8 million. My team handled the implementation over the next 6 months. Marcus and I kept things professional, cordial, efficient, separate from everything personal. He sent me flowers on Medbridge's 5th anniversary. The card read, "From one self-made person to another." Then, on a rainy Thursday, a package arrived at my apartment. Small, no return address, Connecticut postmark. Inside was a piece of paper I hadn't seen in 12 years. My honor roll certificate, the one my mother had pulled off the refrigerator when I was 15, the one that had vanished by morning. It was slightly bent at the corners, yellowed along the edges. A post-it note was stuck to the back in my father's shaky handwriting. It was never cluttered. It was always yours. He'd kept it, 12 years, in a desk drawer, hidden from my mother. The way he'd hidden every honest impulse he'd ever had. It wasn't enough. A piece of paper couldn't undo a decade. But I held it for a long time before I put it down. I didn't call anyone for a week. I needed the silence. Then, on a Sunday morning, I sat at my kitchen table with a mug of coffee and did what I should have done years ago. Not out of anger, not out of victory, but out of clarity. I set the terms. I wrote my mother an email, not a text, not a call, an email, because Donna performed best in real time, and I wasn't giving her a stage. Mom, I don't hate you, but I won't pretend anymore. You chose Julia not because she needed you more, but because she was easier to control. I was inconvenient because I asked questions. I'm not asking anymore. If you want a relationship with me, it starts with honesty, not a performance, not a Facebook post. Honesty. The ball is in your court. I hit send. I didn't reread it. She never replied. I wasn't surprised. Narcissists don't negotiate. They perform or they retreat. Donna retreated. I called my father the following evening. I'm open to staying in touch, I said, but on my terms. No more give it time. No more hiding behind Mom. If you want to be my father out loud. A long pause. I could hear him breathing. I'll try. Don't try. Do. Okay. It wasn't a grand reconciliation. It was a crack in a wall. Enough to let light through. Not enough to walk through. Not yet. As for Julia, I didn't reach out. Not because I hated her. Because I wasn't ready. Forgiveness isn't a door you slam shut. It's a door you open when you're strong enough to stand in the frame without flinching. I wasn't there yet. Maybe someday. But not on anyone else's timeline. That Friday night, Lena came over with Thai food and a bottle of wine. We sat on my living room floor, containers spread between us, and she raised her glass. To the family you chose. I smiled. For the first time in this whole story, a real one. To the family I chose. There's a question people ask me, not often, but when they hear pieces of my story, at a conference or over dinner, or in one of those late-night conversations that go deeper than you planned, they ask, do you feel vindicated? I'm sitting in my office right now. It's early, 6:30, before anyone else gets in. The Boston skyline is turning orange through the window. 28 desks out there, 28 people who'll walk in within the hour, each of them building something that matters. This company started as 12 pages in a professor's lab and a girl who couldn't afford her own dorm sheets. And no, I don't feel vindicated. Vindication implies I needed them to be wrong for me to be right. I didn't. I just needed to be free. For years, I measured myself by a scale my mother built, a scale designed so that I would always come up short and Julia would always shine. It took me a long time to realize the scale itself was broken. Not me. I started therapy 3 years ago. Twice a month, Wednesday evenings, with a woman named Dr. Russo, who has a way of asking questions that make you sit in silence for a full minute before you can answer. I used to think therapy was a sign of weakness, something you needed only if you couldn't handle your own problems. Turns out, it's the opposite. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. Harder than building MedBridge, harder than sleeping 3 hours a night, harder than walking into that wedding. My mother's voice still plays in my head sometimes. Resilience is a gift, Paige. She said it to justify leaving me with nothing. She meant it as a weapon. But she was right about one thing. Resilience is a gift. She just didn't give it to me. I forged it myself, in late-night kitchens and early-morning classrooms and a dorm room with a broken window, and nobody, not her, not anyone, gets to take credit for that. Here's where everyone is now. My mother still lives in the house on Maple Ridge Lane. She posts on Facebook less frequently, once or twice a month, where it used to be daily. The posts are shorter, no more long paragraphs about sacrifice and motherhood, mostly photos of her garden. Aunt Helen told me Donna joined a book club but quit after 2 meetings because the women asked too many personal questions. She hasn't reached out to me. I don't expect her to. Some people would rather lose a daughter than admit they were wrong. I've made peace with that, not because it doesn't hurt, but because waiting for her to change was hurting more. My father calls me every Sunday, 5:30 in the evening like clockwork. The calls last 5 to 10 minutes. He tells me about the weather, about the neighbor's dog, about a documentary he watched. He never mentions my mother. I never ask. It's not enough, but it's something. And after 9 years of nothing, something feels like a lot. He's trying. I see that. I'm not sure trying is enough, but he's doing it out loud, and that's the part that matters. Julia enrolled at a community college in New Haven, a real program this time, with real transcripts and real coursework. She and Marcus are no longer together. She sent me a handwritten letter, 4 pages front and back, about 3 months after the wedding. I read it at my kitchen table. It was honest in a way Julia had never been honest with me before. She didn't blame my mother. She didn't blame me. She wrote, "I spent so long being who they wanted me to be that I forgot to become anyone real." I haven't written back yet. Some letters need time to sit before you know what to say in return. But I haven't thrown it away either. It's in my desk drawer, right next to the honor roll certificate. Marcus and I closed the Lakeview contract successfully. We keep things professional, clean, respectful, boundaried. He's a good man who got caught in someone else's wreckage. I respect how he handled it. And me, MedBridge is growing. We're hiring. The platform is live in over 30 clinics across New England, Lakeview, plus a dozen other partners. But that's not the update that matters. The update that matters is this: I sleep through the night now. I don't flinch when a Connecticut area code lights up my phone. I have people around me who chose me, not because we share blood, but because we share respect. That's enough. That's more than enough. If you're watching this and you recognize your family and mine, I see you. I was you. You don't have to blow up a wedding to find your freedom. Sometimes it's quieter than that. Sometimes it's blocking a number at 2 in the morning. Sometimes it's walking into a therapist's office for the first time and saying the sentence you've been holding for years. Sometimes it's just the word no. Said once, said clearly, and not taken back. My parents taught me one thing, even though they didn't mean to. They taught me I could survive without them. And once you know that, really know it, in your bones, in your worst moments, in the silence of an empty dorm room at 18, nobody has power over you anymore. I don't tell this story for pity. I have a company, a best friend who held my hand under a tablecloth at the worst dinner party in Connecticut history, and a life I built with my own 2 burned, cracked, dishwater-wrinkled hands. I don't need pity. I tell this story because for 9 years, my mother controlled the narrative. Paige left because she was difficult. Paige refused our help. Paige is the problem. 200 people believed her. My aunt believed her. My cousins believed her. And there were nights, long, cold, 3 a.m. nights, when I almost believed her too. Today, I'm taking my story back. If you're the scapegoat in your family, Kai, the one who's too much or not enough, if you're the name that gets whispered at Thanksgiving, the child whose certificate got pulled off the refrigerator, hear me when I say this. Their rejection is not your reflection. I'm Paige Connelly. I'm 27. I run a company I built from nothing. I have a family that chose me, and I sleep well at night. That's enough. If Paige's story reminded you of your own, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Were you the golden child, or the one who got left behind? And if this resonated with someone you know, share it with them. Sometimes the story you needed to hear is the one someone else needed to send you.